Okay, this is Eric Samuels, Director of Continuum of Care Programs at Texas Homeless Network. And if you're reviewing this, you're probably preparing to fill out your shelter housing inventory and census survey. If you are getting ready to fill this out, you're likely seeing this screen where our survey is located. And you would have got there by clicking on a link like this. You should all get emails that are similar to this sent to your agency and to you directly as a representative. So this is a quick survey. It's designed so that you can complete it in a short amount of time. A few minutes is what we hope it'll take you. It's an important survey because we need to gather this data to report to HUD as part of our overall application for shelter and services. So we're trying to increase the number of programs out there, or further fund some programs out there that do a good job of moving people out of homelessness. And this is part of the information we need to report to HUD to do that. So please participate in this. We really need your numbers. Now on every page of this survey you're going to see these instructions. I'm not going to read through these right now. You can read through them. But basically it's asking you to participate and telling you what it's for. And then the instructions state that there are 3 sections to the survey, basically after this page. And each section pertains to the different types of housing programs out there. So the first section is for emergency shelter, which the majority of our programs out there are emergency shelters. So that will be where the majority of work is done. Transitional housing is our second section. I think there's about 40 to 50 transitional housing programs out there, so there'll be a lot of surveys for that as well. And permanent supportive housing, and that's the lowest number of programs we have out there, but it's still, I think, around 15. So we will have some programs filling that out. Now, if you only have one of these programs, you'll just fill out that section and then you'll go through and press submit. Some agencies, well, many agencies actually have both emergency shelter and transitional housing, so you'll complete both sections. You can either complete both sections in the same survey, which is the easiest and most efficient way to do it, or you can just submit one for your emergency shelter and then go back in and complete another survey for your transitional housing program. That's something you'll definitely need to do if you have one or more of these, or if you have more than one of these programs. So if you have 2 emergency shelters, you're definitely going to have to go back in and complete another survey. And I'm sorry about that, but to make the survey as short as possible for most of our agencies, this is the way we had to set it up. This is due January 31st, so please start this as soon as you get the link. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about this, email me, eric@thn.org, or give me a call at this number, 512-687-5105, and we can certainly talk about it. Now to begin, each one of these placeholders here are for your contact information. And if you see this little red asterisk, what that means is you have to fill that out. It's a required section. So if you don't fill it out and you try to go to the next page, well, you'll see what happens. You get a problem. It shows that there's a problem with your submission. All this means is that you have to complete that section. So I'm just going to type in sample agency as a placeholder. I'm not going to worry too much about spelling or anything, just so I can go through this really quick. Type in your email address and where you're located. We do need all of this contact information so we can get back in touch with you if we have any questions. So that's why we're asking for this. And we do need your agency name and program name. Now, if you were to fill this out for different programs in the same survey, we may have to contact you to ask what programs you're filling this out for. But if you complete 2 different surveys, you'll be able to identify the 2 different programs that way. We have on record all of your program names anyway, for the most part, so this should not be that big of an issue. It's okay. When you go to the next page, then you go to the section for emergency shelter. Remember I said that these directions remain the same for each page throughout. Now, if you are in an emergency shelter, you're going to go ahead and choose yes here and then complete the rest of the survey. If you're not in an emergency shelter, you'll choose no, and you'll see that when you do that, the questions that were below this question, they disappear. And then when you go to the next page, it automatically goes to transitional housing. Now, we set this up this way so that you can go through this fast if you're only operating one program. But I'm going to go ahead and fill this emergency shelter survey section out so everyone can see this, because this is the majority of our programs. So first of all, you'll make sure you are in an emergency shelter. So this is short-term housing, usually for no more than 60 days. Some of our programs last a little longer than that, but this is, like I said, short-term housing. It doesn't have a whole lot of case management to it or services. It is just considered temporary housing that we use to try to get people stabilized first before they go on to longer-term housing. The next section is something that you'll have to fill out for each housing section. So you need to choose what the primary target population is. And this is the population that makes up about 75% of your clientele. So you need to choose one of these. And if you scroll down the list, you can see that depending on what code you use, and these are all the codes, for example, SMHC is single males and households with children. They can help you identify a large scale population, or it can be a really specific population that you serve. For the purposes of this, we're going to say that basically anybody can stay at our program. Single males and females and households with children, or single males and females together. Then you choose a secondary target population if there is a secondary target population. Many of your programs will just leave it no secondary target population. But some, especially our domestic violence shelters, would choose this. And we do have a lot of domestic violence shelters, so if you do represent that, make sure you choose this. If we have a program that's for veterans or a program that is for persons with HIV/AIDS, please choose this. Our veteran programs will mainly be our BASH programs, so if you represent that, you'll want to choose this when you get to the permanent housing section. So when you click next page after that, then this is the page where you're going to list all of your housing inventory and your census numbers. And this is where the majority of work will be done. So first of all, you need to indicate the number of units and beds that are available to your clients. And you need to indicate the number of units and beds that are available to your clients that are in households with dependent children, and then those that are in households without dependent children. That's how HUD wants us to separate this housing inventory. And keep in mind, a unit is a sleeping quarters. So in a large auditorium, say Randy Sims in Texarkana, that they would have one unit but several beds, because they have one large room where they have several cots for their emergency shelter. So in that case, it would be, for example, one unit and something like 50 beds. I know that's not the exact number, but that's a good example there. Some of our programs have apartments, and then people will stay in those apartments. So the apartment is the number of rooms, the apartment is a unit, and then you have the beds in there. So just try to determine as best you can what your program looks like. And if you want to, you can always contact me to see how we've recorded your numbers in the past. In fact, I think I'll put that on the website, so I'll look for that whenever I send you the email so you could review that. So first of all, you identify the number of units. So we're going to keep this really simple. We're going to say we have 5 units for people in households with dependent children, and there are 3 beds in each one of those units. So there are 15 beds. For our singles, we're going to say we have one large room with 20 cots for singles. And that is our housing inventory there. That's just the number of units and beds we have available, not how many people are in them. Then when we get to the section below that, we identify the number of people that are in these units and beds. So it follows the same order. We start with households, for households with dependent children. So we'll say out of our 5 units, we have 4 family units actually staying there. And they are occupying, we'll say, 13 beds. So there are times that you could have more people. You could move beds into some of your units that typically only have 3 beds to accommodate a larger family. So your number can go up. So definitely put the number of people that are actually there, even if you're not filling every unit. So that's our census for the night before. And when you fill this out, use your numbers from the night before you received the survey or you started the survey, because we just need your numbers from the last week in January. Now for singles or households without dependent children, we're going to say that we have 20 beds. We're going to say we're completely full, but one of those, 2 of those beds are made up from a married couple without children. So we're going to say that we have 19 households and 20 people. HUD considers single persons their own household, and married couples without children their own household. So in this case, you would have 19 households and 20 people. Okay, so once you finish that, if you have emergency shelter, then you just click next page. You go to transitional housing, and then you choose no. And then you go to permanent supportive housing, and you choose no. And then you'll get to the submission page. For the purposes of this training, I'm going to go back to transitional housing. Going back to transitional housing, and we'll choose yes here, because there are 2 things I need to show everyone. One thing is under the transitional housing page, and one is under the permanent housing page. There's a slight difference between the transitional housing page and the emergency shelter page, and this is the only difference. You need to identify whether or not this is a facility-based program or a voucher-based program. Most of your programs will be facility-based. Those that provide vouchers, so their clients stay in apartments or units throughout the community on a voucher, and when they're done with the program, they can stay in that unit, and then the program moves the voucher to another unit. Those are called voucher-based programs. So you have to choose whether or not you're facility-based or voucher. This is new. We haven't done this in the past. So that's the only difference in the transitional housing page from the emergency shelter page. Now, just for to save some time, I'm going to go straight to the permanent housing page so you can see the difference there. So under permanent housing, if you operate one of those, choose yes here. Just like with emergency shelter, you choose a primary target population and then a secondary if you have that. You go to next page. And on this page, the only difference between the emergency shelter section is that when you're doing your housing inventory, everything's the same. You provide the number of units that are for persons with households with dependent children, the number of beds that are for that same group, the number of units that are for households without dependent children, and the number of beds that are for them. But then you identify, out of all of these beds, how many are dedicated to the chronically homeless. If you're unsure what that definition is, then please look at the pop-up definition here to choose. But you'll identify how many out of that total number are dedicated. If you need help with this, please definitely give me a call or email and I can help you with that. But that's the survey. Once you complete it, you'll go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and just choose no here so I can go to the end. Once you get to the end, you'll press submit, and you'll be taken to the Balance of State homepage. Again, if you have any questions in the survey, please call me, but I hope this recorded webinar has helped, and thanks for your participation.